Hello and welcome to round 4 of the 2019 Formula Virtual World Championship here from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. My name's Downton and I'll be joined today not by Harry Westwood but by Nick Forrest.
Alright there.
Today then we are at the Sepang International Circuit in Malaysia. The drivers will be tackling 56 laps of this 5.451 kilometre circuit. Nathaniel Powers won last year in a race that was heavily affected by rain from quite early on. Let's see if we'll get any today. Let's take a look then through the grid. On pole position, his 5th career pole, it's Klaas van Snelheid, his 2nd of the season. He starts on the medium tyres and has his teammate Nathaniel Powers alongside in an all Downton front row. Powers though is on the hards. In 3rd, Enrique Ruiz, the leader of Franklin's. Ruiz is on the mediums like a pole sitter, but Adrian Simon in the lead of the DS Masters in 4th is on the hards like Powers. Row 3 and leading that in 5th we have the 2nd Franklin Kinnaman on the mediums like his teammate, and the lead first of Felix Perez also on the medium tyres. We have all 4 compounds on the grid today, and we'll show you the further ones as we get down. Also on the mediums in 7th, Alar Kanga. Johan Halverson's the lead North Star in 8th, he is on the hard tyres. Rounding out the top 10, in 9th we've got Mario Juan Lopez in the Meteor on the softs, a great effort there from the Argentine, and Alexander Zolia on the hards completes the top 10. Just outside in 11th position we've got Sebastian Bergqvist in the first Holmqvist. He is on the soft tyres, an interesting choice to be intriguing to see how that one plays out. The 2nd North Star of Gabriele Garcia, he is on the medium tyres. Felix Baer lines up in 13th for the 2nd race in a row on the hard tyres, and Vazquez alongside again for the 2nd race in a row. Vazquez is on the softs in the lead. Ingram with not his teammate right behind, it's Jules Simon in 15th on the mediums, and Matson is technically right behind him on the side of the grid. Matson, the only driver on the extra soft tyre, starting from 16th. Brave call in the hot temperatures of Malaysia. Will Hoskins is a brilliant 17th in the Andromeda. He is on the medium tyres, and Thierry Zylander in the DS Phoenix also on the mediums alongside in 18th. 19th is the first Lopez of Elroy Wagner. He is on the mediums, as is the Argentine Sergio Alvarez alongside him, the 2nd Phoenix, rounding out the top 20. 21st is Victor Rosberg. He is on the mediums like his teammate. And Puccio Giordano lines up 22nd. He set the fastest lap here last year. I'm not quite sure he'll manage that again. He is on the medium tyres. 23rd is his teammate Hunter Ryan. Ryan is on the hard tyres. Rodolfo De La Fuente goes from 24th. He is on the softs. This race will feature neither AMR, but it will feature a Chima for the first time. Nikolai Milkovic lines up 25th, just ahead of Arden Hutchinson at the back row of the grid. They are both on the soft tyres. So then, as we go down to the grid, it's Klaas van Snelheid in pole position on the right, Nathaniel Powers 2nd on the left. The lights go out now and we're racing in Malaysia. It looks like a brilliant start from Nathaniel Powers, who already up and alongside Klaas van Snelheid, and it looks as though he's got a nose ahead. He also has the inside line to turn 1. Nathaniel Powers then leads into turn 1, and is Ruiz going to follow him through? Maybe not, because Klaas van Snelheid back around the outside, and Van Snelheid takes back the lead then. The young Dutchman from pole position has somehow held on. Powers 2nd, Ruiz 3rd, and Perez with a fantastic start is up to 4th. And we've got a yellow flag at the back of the grid. Doesn't look as though there's anything on the time screen. Powers looks to the inside of Klaas, can't do anything about it, and they filter around then, and the yellow flag disappears.
Well, that was certainly quite hectic going into the first corner. Powers just seemed to get a better reaction to the lights than Klaas did, but Klaas able to hold on around the outside and get the inside for the next corner, and that has allowed him to maintain the lead. And now Powers has to keep an eye on Ruiz behind him, the current championship leader.
Yeah, it certainly is, and yeah, that start from Perez. Perez gained 2 spots. I think both DS Masters lost out there off the line, and there was the brief yellow flag, but doesn't seem to be. No one is lagging far behind the field, as we see there. That's Will Hoskins getting amongst the Ingrams as John Matson demotes Felix Baer to 14th. Hoskins puts him down to 50. That's Matson making some hay on those extra soft tyres that he really needs to do early on, because I get the feeling they're probably not going to hold up in these temperatures.
I think you may well be right about that, and Hoskins making some great moves at the start, but one driver who hasn't is Alar Kanga, dropping down to 9th.
Yeah, not been the best of starts to the Estonian. Thankfully he's got a little bit of a gap back to Solia, so we can start putting some pressure onto Mario Juan Lopez, as Klaas van Snelheid sets the fastest lap on the first lap of the race, but he's got Nathaniel Powers right up, tucked under his rear wing. The two of them have broken a little bit away from Ruiz already.
So it would seem. I think Ruiz is starting to not exactly keep an eye on Perez, because there seems to be a similar gap, but there he is, sort of clinging onto the back of Powers. So if anything happens to the two Downtons up ahead, he'll be right there.
Yeah, let's hope not. I don't want a 2017 repeat. I don't think I could take that.
I don't know if any of us could. That was, I would imagine that was probably the most unlucky a team has been in Formula Virtual, at least from what I've seen.
It was certainly heartbreaking. We shan't dwell on that one.
No, we shan't. It's quite early in the race.
Yeah, we're in 1-2.
As we keep an eye on Suzuka in 10.
Yeah, putting pressure then on Alar Kanga. A pair of them tucked up behind Lopez, although Halverson just in front of them as well. So it looks as though maybe he's the stopper in the bottle. Some now 1.5 seconds continuing already as we have a yellow flag in the middle sector. And there are two cars off the road. That is Elroy Wagner and Hunter Ryan then. So the German and the Australian have come together and the pair have slipped to the back of the field. Neither looks to have picked up any damage, thankfully though.
I think I did see a little bit of carbon fibre kicking around, but nothing too substantial, so hopefully they'll be able to keep going, but they've got it all to do now, haven't they?
Yeah, they certainly have, as Powers looks to the inside of Glass at the final corner. Nothing doing there then, as they come across the line to complete the second lap. The top three, absolutely no to tell, and it looks as though Ruiz may well be in Powers' slipstream with a chance to potentially look at moving up on the inside at turn one, but nothing doing there as Ruiz sets the fastest lap, and I think you can tell that he started the lap some way behind the Downton pair, or at least a few tenths, and now he is right at the Powers rear wing.
And it looks as Perez, Simon and Kinnaman are starting to close the gap a little bit as we go on board with Wagner and see what happened here, and he just lost it on the curbs, and Ryan didn't have anywhere to go there.
Yeah, that was unfortunate there then for Hunter Ryan. It was purely Wagner's fault, and it did cause damage because Elroy Wagner is in the pits.
That's true, the Australian a complete passenger in that incident, but this will put the Lopez driver quite a distance behind. You can see the gap, some 45 seconds back to the lead, and only lap 3. That's a pretty long afternoon for him, you've got to imagine.
Yeah, it certainly is. He's already 25 seconds back from his teammate, and I can't remember what tyres Wagner was on.
I wasn't quite paying that much attention to the replay, I was just focusing on what exactly happened. But we're on board with Ruiz right now, chasing down Nathaniel Powers, and Klaas van Snelheid, it looks as though he's starting to pull a little bit of a gap ahead.
Yeah, it does. He's got around 8 tenths back from his teammate, as my technology is playing havoc and I can't find the tyres. There we go, tyres. Wagner is on the mediums.
Oh, there we are. So that's not entirely sure how long that will be, as Kangor and Zazulia appear to be trading positions, and Juan Maria Lopez is also getting involved, and Kangor's made his way back up to 8th.
Yeah, decent effort there. The Estonian starting to recover then, and he really needs to, as they nearly go three wide round turn one then. Bergqvist, Zazulia and Garcia, and it's Zazulia that loses out. Bergqvist passed the Ukrainian up into 10th place.
Well, that was a pretty ambitious move, and it sadly didn't come off, as I think Matsson's got ahead of Garcia as well on those extra soft tyres. Needs to be making the most of them in this early going.
Yeah, Matsson, I mean, you'd expect him to be really, but he is flying at the moment, and now got a couple of seconds to close to the back of Zolio. It'll be interesting. The first has been the quicker of the two cars this year, so it'll be interesting to see whether Matsson can close that gap at all.
It certainly will be, but although Zazulia does seem to be caught in a little bit of a train behind Lopez there, so I think Matsson, if he gets the hammer down, could close that gap pretty swiftly in the next couple of laps or so.
Yeah, certainly be interesting to see, as on screen we've got Will Hoskins then, tucked up behind Jules Simon and looking to make a move for 15th place. Hoskins, who has qualified for every race this season for Andromeda, but man, they've had some really bad luck.
They really have. They've had, 5 starts and 4 retirements, which is not the record you'd want, but it does at least keeps them off the bottom of the standings, which is currently Chima and Excelsior behind them, and Chima, from the looks of it, will at least stay 15th for now, having qualified one car in the shape of Nikolai Milkovic.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic news story there, as I'll cut back to that in a second, because on board with Bergqvist then, looks to the inside of Lopez, down into turn one, the Swede, and there's contact between the two. Lopez cuts across, and the pair of them are connected around turn one, and that's going to cause a lot of tailbacks behind, but it's helped Garcia who sweeps back around Matsson. Can he get Zazulia as well? I don't think he quite can, but he's got Bergqvist, who's gone out very wide at turn two, and also lost a place to John Matsson.
Well, that was a good bit of opportunism from the Brazilian there, but I think it was just a little bit not leaving each other enough room there between. It was Lopez and Bergqvist, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and
this is a replay of Adrian Simon on Felix Perez. I wonder if there was contact slightly further up the road as well. It would seem not. Nope, that was just a solid overtake from Simon to move into fourth.
Well, showing the rest of the grid how it's done, and we've got Jean Matson looking very, very aggressive on those extra soft tyres as well, as he needs to be. And take a look at this, Zozulia attacking Lopez, and we've got Garcia, Matson, Bergqvist. There's a big old train behind this Meteor right here.
Yeah, absolutely. As that's Garcia then, around the outside of Matson. Can he keep hold of it? He absolutely can. Garcia then up into 11th place. And I think we're seeing here some very, very aggressive defending from Lopez as the two Holmqvists nearly go side by side.
We've got a whole raft of different tyre strategies in this train as well. This could be very, very interesting depending on when they all pit.
Yeah, certainly could. What this will do though is look at that. Lopez in 9th is now 16 seconds behind the leader and 10 seconds behind Kanga. This is going to give the front runners a beautiful gap that they can open up and potentially slot into from their tyre strategy. As we've got some cars in the pits already. That, I presume, is Lopez and Bergqvist.
I can only imagine it is. They must have picked up some amount of damage from that contact into turn 1. But at the moment, we've got, I think this is into the first corner, we've got Garcia, and that is Matson going right around the outside, and Bayer taking some of that as well. So 2 positions the Brazilian loses in the span of just 1 corner.
Yeah, it's incredible how slow that inside line is proving to be at turn 1. Although, well, Adrian Simon just managed to execute a move, so maybe they need to watch how he did it.
Well, quite potentially, as we keep an eye on Nikolai Milkovic. This is the first time we've been able to see the Chima in racing trim this season so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic story there for Chima. Turned up, this is the 4th race they've been at. Unfortunately, they've missed the cut in every other race, literally by 1 position. They've been so unfortunate to be 7th in all of the Q1 sessions, but here finally, Milkovic has made the grid, and we're hoping for a decent result to try and keep them, well, try and boost them somewhere up the championship.
I think they certainly will be, and from what we've seen so far, it might just be a case of staying out of trouble, which can often get you some quite strong results if the luck goes your way. And at the moment, running in 21st, and not that far back from Puccio Giordano in the Ocelot. Yeah,
absolutely, and it'll certainly be the case here if we get some rain like we did last year. You just need to make it to the end, and you're likely to pick up a point.
That is true, or even if you don't make it to the end, you'll still pick up a point, as was the case with Alvarez.
Yeah, absolutely. As there we go, Felix Perez then, he's obviously learned from Adrian Simon, down inside at turn 1, and he's taken the position back with the Frenchman's own move.
Well, there you are, an eye for an eye, I suppose, but Perez takes 4th place from Simon as we got Jean Matson into the pits. Now, is this a scheduled stop on the extra soft tyres?
If it is, he's in for a very long day.
As I think Simon's just gotten back past Perez again.
He has, these two trading places then, well, corner after corner seemingly, but it's costing them. They're now, well, 5.5, 6 seconds behind the race lead.
And they've got Timo Kinnaman to keep an eye on as well, and Alar Kangur, who dropped back at the start and is now caught right back up to them again.
Yeah, I was going to say Scandinavian duo, but Estonia is not really Scandinavian, is it?
More Balkan, I would have said.
Yeah. Well, either way, the Finn and the Estonian then.
Yes,
we'll keep it simple.
Kim and Khan. According to the timing screen on the left.
Yeah. Yes, brilliant. So 4 of them all in a row there, and they've got Johan Halsen not too far back as well. The Dane keeping an eye on things and just ready to pick up the pieces if anything goes wrong here.
Well, so it would seem, I forget which tyres Halverson is on, but if it is the hard tyres, then you've got to imagine he could be on course for a pretty solid result here as we go on board with Kangur, chasing them down the main straight. I don't know if he's close enough to get a toe into turn 1.
Not quite, it seems.
Doesn't look like it, but he is still right there, and if anything happens with the guys up ahead, Simon to Kinnaman.
Kinger. You've just merged the 2 of them.
I have done. I don't know what that was all about.
Down the inside. That's Jules Simon on Garcia. Can't quite make that work at turn 1. Can he go around the outside of turn 2 though? The Frenchman, he can't make that one work either, but looks as though he's all over the back of Gabriel Garcia.
Quite potentially, and Garcia's going defensive up the run into the hill, and we've got Vasquez behind him and Simon right around the outside. Fantastic move there.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant then from the younger Simon, and that now leaves Garcia potential prey to James Vasquez. But yeah, what a beautiful move there from Simon. He tried, well, 4 corners in a row really, and eventually managed to pull it off as the 2 DS Phoenix cars running nose to tail in 15th and 16th.
Not too far from the Simon Garcia pairing that we just saw there, but back at the front we've got Klaas van Snelheid and Powers, and Enrique Ruiz just a second behind Klaas van Snelheid as well. The top 3 pretty much inseparable in the early going.
Yeah, Ruiz is sticking with the pairing, and the top 3 are within a second, which is, well, very, very impressive stuff. Meanwhile, Adrian Simon, he's further back, but then he's been scrapping with Perez, hasn't he?
He has been, and that's been costing him time, but I think having gotten ahead of Perez, and he just seems to be holding that position for now, I think the gap is starting to come down little by little, so Simon could still factor into this race a little later on.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I was momentarily distracted.
Oh, what were you distracted by?
the tyres.
That's
Halverson's on the hards.
Halverson is on the hards, that's interesting. So he's dropped about 2.5 seconds back from Kangur now.
Yeah, just looking at the front runners, what is intriguing is Powers' pace at the moment. Klaas is on the mediums, as is Ruiz, but Powers is on the hards. The fact that he's keeping in line with them is really quite impressive at the moment. And well, surely in these early stages, I know we've got a lot of race to play out yet, but in these early stages, it's probably put him in the favourite position.
Absolutely, I think he could well be in the pound seat for the victory here if he can hold everything together and the tyres hold up as well. Ooh. You've got to imagine that if Klaas van Snelheid and Ruiz drop down into some clear air for those medium tyres and they can really put the hammer down, they might be able to jump Powers a little bit later on in the race. But for now, Powers is holding there and he's doing a pretty strong job of it.
Yeah, very possibly, but then Klaas is in clear air at the moment and he's not getting away.
Well, that's true, but it does give Powers a toll down the long straights into the hairpin and away from it.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And he's probably having to defend as well at the moment, Klaas.
I think that's probably true with Powers less than 4 tenths behind him now. It's closing right up down into the first corner.
Yeah, isn't he just? The 2 Downtons getting very close together. I just hope they don't.
Yeah, I certainly hope they don't either. That would be disastrous for them. But keeping an eye on this train, and it just seems to have settled down as... again, as we have seen a few times throughout the season, that you get these trains and there's not really any driver wanting to go for a move lest they fall right to the back of it.
Yeah, they just kind of, yeah, as you say, I think that's definitely a concern for them. It's just, you know, fight for a position, try and take a position in front, and then lose out to everyone there. And but also, I think we're probably getting close to. The first, I was going to say first round of pit stops, but yeah, maybe for the soft tyre guys, of which I don't think any of the front runners are thinking about it, so it doesn't really make a difference.
That could quite possibly be it. I'm not entirely certain who is running on the soft tyres, but...
Lopez, Bergqvist, Vasquez, De La Fuente, Milkovic and Hutchinson.
Okay, so I think the majority of them at the moment seem to be down in the lower reaches of the order for the time being.
Yeah, seems to be those slightly further down who maybe sort of... I suppose I mean, there was a forecast of rain today, but we know what that's like in Malaysia. They have random storms literally every day, but I mean, as to when one will turn up, you just can't predict it. But if it does turn up, it will be a deluge. So maybe, some guys at the back just chancing their arm on some soft tyres and hoping that they'll just be able to use them in between sort of some rain showers or something.
I think that could well be what they're hoping for, or at least if the rain came early, they could use the pace advantage that the soft tyres would have, but it doesn't seem to have come early enough for them, and the skies are pretty clear for the time being from the looks of things, so I don't think the rain is going to be coming anytime soon if it is coming.
No, I think I agree. Yeah, there we go. So these are the soft tyre runners then. De La Fuente follows him in. So this is the first round of stops for those on the softs. Bergqvist will be slightly up the filter, won't he? Because he... Oh, and so will Lopez, because both of them are on the softs. They pitted only a few laps ago after a collision, as that is indeed Bergqvist and Hunter Ryan going wheel to wheel through turns 1 and 2. And it's Bergqvist that comes out on top then as he demotes the Australian for 19.
Well, speaking of, you've got to imagine the soft tyres might have helped them with that one, but Ryan seems to have a pretty good run down into the next corner here, and they might have to go defensive as we got a very brief yellow flag in turn 1. and Lopez getting very argy-bargy and going past the Australian as well.
Yeah, Lopez there sneaking up the inside and round the outside as well, John Matson. And that was very close between the two of them, but inch perfect from Matson to go up into 20th and demote Ryan. Well, he's lost, what, 3 places in 3 corners?
Well, he was wrong-footed by Bergqvist, and then Lopez got him the next time around, and then Matson just pounced. So Hunter Ryan, the hard tires might be going deep into this race, but they don't seem to be giving him much in the way of pace at the time being. As we've got, this is Kangur and Kinnaman. We've got a run down into turn 1 from the looks of things.
Yeah, Kanga down the inside. He's just got a wheel alongside, but Kinnaman giving him absolutely no room. And Kanga, can he go around the outside of turn 2? He can. They're side by side, but he doesn't quite get the traction. And Kinnaman then holds on to 6th place. It's a pair of them now, falling a little bit back from Felix Perez.
And Adrian Simon up ahead as well, but that was pretty, I would say, harsh but fair from Kinnaman. He was defending, but he left Kangur just enough a car's width on the inside of the track, and they both got away with it.
Yeah, well, that's the crucial thing, isn't it? They are both still racing, thankfully, and neither of them has lost any kind of time.
Well, that's true. They've lost a couple of tenths or so to Perez up ahead, but they both are potential championship protagonists, if at least in the team's championship, if not the drivers. But you've got to imagine that would have been weighing on their minds as well, because they don't want to be throwing points away, do they, if it's this close already? Yeah,
that's a very fair point. Ala Kanga, one of the drivers who's not had the best of starts to the season. I know we've only had 3 races, but 1 retirement, kind of duff result in Australia, and okay, he picked up 2nd in Japan, but he'd have certainly been hoping for more points from the opening 3 races.
I think he certainly will have done, but you've got to imagine that he could well have picked up the victory in Japan if the race had been a lap or 2 longer, as I've just noticed that Wagner and De La Fuente have both dropped into the pits again, so what would that have been for, do you think?
Oh, I don't know, we did see a brief yellow flag again, so I wonder if that's what that was for then. But yeah, Wagner's got involved in it all today, hasn't he? 12 laps in, and he's already pitted twice, having been involved in what we assume are now 2 incidents.
Well, certainly it's not been the best of starts for the Malaysian Grand Prix this year for Wagner, but keeping an eye on Klaas van Snelheid in the lead for Downton currently, and Nathaniel Powers is still sticking with him.
Yeah, as is Enrique Ruiz. It's incredible, the 3 of them. We're on the 13th lap of this race, and there's still just a second separating the 3.
As Matson enters the pits again down the order in 22nd, so if that's his second scheduled stop for tyres, then this is going to be a long old afternoon for the England driver.
Well, I presume it is, because yeah, that would first stop was on lap 6, wasn't it? Second stop at the end of lap 12. So yeah, that's ouch. That's a 9 stopper for John Matson.
I don't think we've ever seen that many stops in Formula 1. I think the most we've ever had is 6, if memory serves.
I think we've had a 7 at one point.
Well, regardless, that would absolutely smash the record if he does manage to go the distance and not get lapped twice. But back to the front, Nathaniel Powers does seem to be sitting in the toe of Klaas van Snelheid on the run down to turn 1. Is he going to take a dive, or perhaps he is going to take a dive in fact?
Yeah, he's closing rapidly, and Powers down the inside of turn 1 on his teammate. Nathaniel Powers looks as though he's got the move done. He muscles his teammate aside, and Powers goes into the lead then.
So that was a pretty strong move there, as just left him enough room, and Klaas van Snelheid not wanting to get involved in an incident this early on between teammates. But now he's got to keep an eye on Enrique Ruiz behind him, just a couple of tenths separating him and the Franklin driver.
Yeah, it'd be interesting now to see whether Powers can build a gap at all. Obviously, he is on the harder compound tyre, but you'd imagine Klaas's tyres are probably getting towards the end of their life now. So perhaps Powers, while not as quick or in a better condition, he might just be able to start eking a gap.
You'd think that would be happening, and keep in mind Klaas van Snelheid will have to defend from Ruiz, so that'll cost him time as well, as we have seen a couple of occasions during the race as well. So Powers, I think he may just start to pull like a tenth here and there, but I'm not entirely sure he'll be streaking away into the distance just yet.
Yeah, Klaas now in the unenviable position of having to attack and defend all at the same time.
Well, we've seen, I think, a few times on occasion this season and seasons in the past, that it just tends to stall out if you're in that position. You don't really seem to gain any on the car in front or necessarily lose any to the car behind unless they're pretty desperate to get past.
Yeah, absolutely. Just noticed there was a lot of thick black lines on the way into that final corner. We've obviously seen quite a few lockups already.
Well, potentially, but then you've got to imagine that some of the drivers on the softer tyres would have been attacking a little bit more, trying to get the most out of them in the early going. But given that they've already pitted once in the case of the softs and twice in the case of John Matson, he's in for a pretty long afternoon. As we watch the cars going around the first corner, there's a fair few black lines there as well.
Yeah, very true. Although I should imagine a lot of them were probably from where Bergqvist and Lopez were entwined.
That could well be the case as we watch, I think that was Zazulia just going around on his own. And then we've got Simon and Garcia still right behind him, unable to make any inroads.
Yeah,
but
and Hoskins in 13th as well.
At the head of that little train with himself, the two DS Phoenix cars, and Victor Ersberg just behind.
Yeah, it's Hoskins doing a great job so far, but he's done this all season. And Andromeda have showed the pace as well. De La Fuente, admittedly in a wet qualifying session, was 7th, I think, on the grid in Australia. And, okay, overtaking in Australia was difficult, but he looked as though he was on course for points, or a point at least. And until his engine robbed him.
I was exactly going to mention that. His engine sadly giving way, and it was the sort of middling stages of the race or so. But I suppose these are just teething troubles for a new team, as Andromeda are. But they definitely seem to have the pace down, and I think it's perhaps a little bit easier to make a fast car reliable than a slow car quick, potentially.
Yeah, I dare say I absolutely agree with that one. As what will be interesting is obviously this is race 4. We've only got one more race next time out, and we go to Silverstone in Britain, where the top 5 are locked. Where the teams that go into Q1 are still locked from last year. From the next round after that, it becomes open and just becomes the 6 teams at the bottom of the championship moving forwards, and it will be interesting to see. I mean, Andromeda are obviously going to be quickest, whether they can potentially pull themselves out of that little group.
That would be quite a story if they could, and you've got to imagine that of the 4 teams that have joined or rejoined in the case of Lucas this season, you've got to say that Andromeda definitely look like the best pick to at least score a point or two or move themselves out of that Q1 threshold.
Yeah, well and truly. What have we got? We've currently got 7 teams without a point heading into this race. So it's entirely possible that they could do it without scoring a point.
That is potentially, but then if another team's finished 11th, I can't remember if they have or not.
I'm just going to check that one. You read my mind.
I was wondering, because where did Ingram finish? Were they not 12th in Australia?
Ingram have had an 11th in Australia and a 12th in Japan.
So that would presumably give them the nudge out of Q1 if it all stayed as it is. So I think Andromeda do have to at least score 1 point, and that would get them safe for the time being, because I'm not entirely certain any of the other teams in that little fight there necessarily look to have the pace at the moment, as we got some pitters from the lead. That's Klaas van Snelheid.
Yeah, there we go then. So these are the front runners into the pits for their first stop, and that is at the end of what, lap 16. Klaas van Snelheid out of pits. Can he get clear of Perez? He can't. They bang wheels. There's debris off one of the cars there. I'm not entirely sure which. Klaas van Snelheid though around the outside of turn 2, and he's just kept, sorry, it's not Perez, it's Zazulia. He's just kept the Ukrainian behind him.
He shanted Zazulia right onto the grass in that turn 2 move there, but you've got to imagine he was not wanting to be held up at all in that incident, and he really does need to put the hammer down now to close back up to Powers and Ruiz up ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I dare say if he'd have got caught behind Zazulia there, that would have been the position gone to Ruiz, who has managed to eke his tyres out an extra lap.
That he has, and Kangur looks to have jumped Kinnaman again after slipping behind momentarily. And Kangur now finds himself ahead of this squabbling Simon and Garcia pairing, and Kinnaman finds himself right behind them, so this is going to cost the Finn time as well. Yeah, that's not worked out brilliant there for the Franklin driver, has it? There's Kangur, I'm getting all my K's confused today. Klaas van Snelheid, sorry, is already nearly like 2 seconds clear of Zazulia, so we definitely have the pace on him. Certainly does do, and I think that would have brought the gap back down to Powers as well, as Ruiz pulls into the pits as well. So that'll be for his first scheduled stop, a lap later than Klaas van Snelheid. Can he jump him though? And Perez joins him in the pits.
Yeah, so there we go then, the medium-tired runners. So we had a load pit at the end of lap 16, didn't we? So what does that work out as? 16, 32, 48. So that's a solid nailed-on 3-stopper. And to be fair, even those that have pitted, that have managed to eke out that extra lap, even if they do that every stint, there's still a 3-stopper, isn't it?
That is still a 3-stopper, yeah. They can afford to, I think, lose a lap or two per stint and still be in a pretty comfortable 3-stopper.
Sorry, we've got a Hongfist without a front wing. That is Felix Bayer there then.
In 7th position currently, so you've got to imagine that might have been the car exiting the pit lane and just collecting the Holmquist rather, collecting the back of them, as that's Perez getting a little bit nudgy going into that corner.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if we get a replay of that. As meanwhile, nice little note there. I know we've had some pit stops. Johan Halvorsen running 3rd.
Oh, that's fantastic. So I've just noticed he's got Klaas van Snelheid closing in pretty rapidly behind him on medium tyres, but given that Halvorsen is on the hards, this looks like a pretty good result if he can hold it there.
It certainly does. Yeah, you get the feeling with Klaas behind him on a fresh set of mediums, he might not hold it for too much longer, but hey, it's 3rd. Take a picture of that.
It is currently 3rd. It's like when he led that time in the United States last year when the rain came down.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a fantastic drive from Halvorsen.
It was at the time for, I forget what it was, but here's what happened with Bayer, and he's just closing in a little bit too tight on Perez, and banging wheels in a little bit more, and well, that was the front wing, and that's an extra pit stop for him, you can imagine. Yeah,
I mean, that was firmly Bayer's fault. Perez had the inside line, and Bayer turned in on him as the two Felixes come together, while Klaas van Snelheid sets the fastest lap, and dips into the 31s.
Wow, that's a pretty impressive lap time there from the Dutchman. He is Dutch, if I remember rightly.
He is Dutch.
Yes, here he is. But here we are, just talking about him. Johan Halvorsen in the North Star, currently running in a podium position.
That, just a note, Klaas van Snelheid there, that beats Puccio Giordano's fastest lap and therefore lap record from last year by 0.2 of a second.
Wow, that's pretty impressive stuff there. So keep an eye, we've got a brief flashing yellow flag in the final sector, not entirely sure what that would have been for, as Jean Matson enters the pits again.
I'm just sniggering because Matson's in the pits again already.
Oh dear. Well, we said this was going to be a long afternoon for him, but I think this is Klaas van Snelheid we're on board with, and you can just see Halvorsen up ahead. So this is Downton versus North Star, and you've got to imagine that Downton has the pace advantage in the car at least, and with medium tyres against the hards, so you've got to imagine this could be done in the next 2 or 3 laps or so.
Yeah, you'd assume so, as Klaas van Snelheid then looks to set about closing the gap to his teammate who is out leading and will presumably make at least one less stop, and but it seems to have held steady at around 18 seconds. Klaas came out of the pits and started to close rapidly, sort of 1 to 2 seconds a lap, but it's just kind of steadied a little bit now.
It seems to have been, although the gap is steadily starting to come down. I would say it was 22 briefly, and he's got Ruiz behind him, but this is Garcia running behind Hunter Ryan, who currently finds himself in 12th after that incident early on, so he's managed a pretty solid recovery there.
Yeah, he certainly has. As was Kanga always behind Perez?
I'm not entirely sure if he was or not.
In the pit stop, because he's only 2 seconds ahead of Kinnaman now. I know he wasn't much further when he came out the pits, but I'm sure he was a little bit further ahead. As down the inside of Garcia, Hunter Ryan sticks his nose, but it doesn't work out for him, and it allows Thierry Zylander to sweep around the outside. Can the other Phoenix get past as well? I don't think Alvarez can quite take advantage, but Hunter Ryan, for the second time in this race, tries an overtake. It doesn't pay off, and he loses a chunk of positions.
Well, so it would seem. It does seem, though, if he sort of loses one position, it seems to come pretty thick and fast for him for the time being. But here we are, Klaas van Snelheid already has caught up to the back of Johan Halvorsen, and you've got to imagine it could be on the run down to this hairpin, and Halvorsen doesn't look like he's going to fight this too hard.
Yeah, and there we go then. Klaas van Snelheid down the inside. He's got the corner. Halvorsen is going to hang it around the outside though, but I think Klaas just gets the traction, squeezes him to the curb on the outside, and Klaas van Snelheid moves back up into 3rd place and now can set about reducing the 12-second gap that he's got to Adrian Simon.
Well, that he can do, heading through the first corner. 1, 2, 3, there you are. Klaas van Snelheid, Halverson and Ruiz. And realistically, that was a battle that the Dane was never going to win. But interestingly enough, is he going to hold Ruiz up at all? Because Ruiz is chasing down Powers as well.
Yeah, that will certainly be interesting to see. I think we see it so often in the other series, don't we? That Formula One thing where drivers in the midfield or slightly further back tell teams in the midfield, tell their drivers to not waste time defending from the race leaders, because you're never gonna be realistically competing with them, and it's just not worth losing that time to those that you are racing.
Well, that is regretfully true, but as we've seen in Formula Virtual season to season, the closeness of the grid is something that really gets some fantastic racing out of it. And I think this season, perhaps more than any other, the midfield is an absolutely stunning battle, because you've got the Downtons, the DS Mothershaws, the Franklins up at the front. First are pretty much right there with them.
They're there in qualifying, but seem to lack a little bit in the race pace.
So it would seem, and I think Halverson was defending that a little bit more than he was with Van Snelheid, but Ruiz right around the outside, and he thinks, thank you very much, he's going to have some of that as well.
Yeah, he sort of allowed Klaas through, sent him an invite, didn't he, really, to come up the inside, and with Ruiz, maybe he's got a problem with the Brazilian, because he covered the inside and tried to slam the door in his face.
I'm not entirely certain why he would, but you may be right about that. As keeping an eye on, this is one of the Lopez cars, chasing down, I think this would be Östberg, presumably, just behind Hunter Ryan. Yes. So Hunter Ryan on the hard tyres, continuing to slide backwards a little bit during the race, but you've got to imagine once the pit stops shake out, he could well find himself in the running for a point or two, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, could Phoenix sat there in 12th and 13th?
That is true. Now, what tyres are they on? Because that could potentially play into the Q1 factor that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the pair of them are both on the hard tyres. It's Osberg down inside of Ryan. Thankfully, there's no one immediately behind for Ryan to lose positions to if Osberg does get past. But which he does. So Osberg up into 14th then. The two DS Phoenix cars are both on the mediums, interestingly.
So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on during the race.
So
the
quite how
mediums
they
and the
managed
hards.
to pit and pull that out, still in 12th and 13th, I don't know.
Have they pitted?
They must have done. All the medium tyre runners have pitted.
That's a very good point. So if they have done, then they've... oh, goodness me, that's a pretty big incident for one of, and it's Hunter Ryan.
Oh. Well, I was just saying he wouldn't lose a ton of positions, and he's proved me wrong.
Well, that's pretty disappointing for him, because he was running up in 14th at the time, and we were just saying he could be on for a point or two, but not after that incident, as we've got, this is Giordano and Hoskins getting very argy-bargy with one another around the first couple of corners, and it is Giordano who comes out ahead.
Yeah, the Italian then puts one over on Will Hoskins in the Andromeda, who now has to defend from James Vasquez. But yeah, just going back to that Q1 battle, obviously we were saying that Andromeda have a chance to get out. It's currently Ingram who are in that prime position of just outside the Q1 zone. But Phoenix with sat in 12th and 13th, looking as though, you know, potentially if anything happens in front of them, they're into the points positions. And I don't think Phoenix, with the greatest of respect to them, have looked like they have any chance of taking a point this season so far whatsoever. So this would be remarkable.
It certainly would. I mean, with the exception of Australia, where Zylander qualified a superb 4th and was managing to hold on in the points-paying positions until another, sadly, engine failure. But in the rest of the races, they don't really seem to have had the pace to get up there. But, come Malaysia, I don't know what it is about this track. It seems to suit them very, very well. Yeah, they had a heartbreak here last year. I mean, obviously, they picked up the first points still. So, that was Hunter Ryan losing it solely on his own. Very impressive. Yeah, they had a brilliant race here last year, and they scored their first points, but it was utterly heartbreaking because it should have been a 4th place for Sergio Alvarez. And I hate to bring this up, and I'm so sorry, Alex. But it was phenomenal, and it just went so wrong that, I mean, it couldn't have been much later. But you're right, it was really as much a case of what might have been, but Alvarez just kept his nose clean, didn't get involved in any of the astonishing raft of incidents that occurred throughout that race, and was all set for 4th position and 12 points, which would have absolutely cemented them in 7th position in the standings. But it was the final corner of the final lap. I don't think you can get much later than that.
No, absolutely not. The only way he could have potentially retired later is if he'd hit that wall just there on the left, just before the line.
True.
But even then, I think if he'd have hit that, he'd have had the momentum to carry him over the line.
That's quite potentially. Actually, that does bring an interesting question. If you sort of do crash and a wheel rolls over the line, does that count?
No, I think if the car had crossed the line with only 3 wheels, that would count. But if it's just a wheel, I don't think it does.
Okay.
Unless you can somehow quickly get the transponder out and into the wheel.
Well, that's potentially. What if the car crosses the line without the driver?
Who knows? It's got to be worth a shot, I suppose. What if the driver crosses the line without the car?
That's called running.
Yeah, but if he's got the transponder, it counts.
That's true. You've got to rapidly disassemble the car. I think we're starting to get a little bit off track here.
It's all good fun. What have we got? It's not Ryan, is it? Because he keeps throwing positions away. So this is Puccio Giordano defending the Hoskins then.
And with Mario Juan Lopez, that is the right way round for his name.
JML.
As JML, that's the one. Pretty close behind him, so these three all seem relatively evenly matched. Lopez, interestingly enough, his teammate Jules Simon currently up in 10th on course for a point. So Lopez not really being able to make too many inroads in this in the race.
No, it's interesting. Again, we were talking about this before the race actually, but in relation to first, Lopez have seemed quick. Lopez, the driver, JML, has seemed quicker in qualifying. He has more qualifying pace, but he's not been able to pick up the race results. We had a yellow flag there in the final sector, but I didn't see anyone vanish down the final screen, so all looks good. Yeah, but Lopez, he's not. I don't know if he's not had the pace or he's not had the luck, but he's not picked up the results in the races. Whereas Jules Simon, I mean, you've got obviously you only scored points for first time last time out, but Simon's more been up there. Lopez from the races just vanishes.
It certainly seems to be that way, but you do need to keep in mind that Jules Simon does have a year of experience over Mario Juan Lopez. Admittedly, in I don't think this is too harsh, pretty much a dog of a car that Meteor produced last year.
I think that's being polite.
Well, fair enough. But then, just having experience in the series and getting to know the ins and outs of Formula Virtual can pay dividends.
Yeah, that's very true, I suppose. And, well, it'd be interesting to see how that battle plays out over the rest of the year and whether Lopez can start pulling some points back, as that is Kanga and Zazolya going side by side into turn 1. And can the Estonian put one over on Zazolya? Looks though he can, round the outside of turn 2. Kanga, has he got the traction? I think Zazolya has managed to somehow keep hold of the place, and he absolutely has. Kanga is in his wheel tracks though, as they head to, I suppose, what is effectively turn 4, isn't it? That flat out right pink is turn 3. Kanga can't do anything about it.
And now he's got Perez right behind him, so sandwiched by the two first cars. Is there going to be any bit of team play going on happening here? Do you think Zazolya might hold up Kanga and allow Perez to take a dive down the inside and take the position from the Estonian, perhaps?
I don't know. I think, to be honest, First should be more focused on getting up the road and chasing after Halverson, who has jumped a pair of them.
Well, quite potentially, but given that Garcia's down in 11th, I don't think they're going to be losing too many points to the British outfit right now, as Lopez comes into the pits from 21st. So I think this would presumably be, because he is a little bit out of sequence after that incident at turn 1, so this would presumably be his second scheduled stop.
As Powers pits from the lead. Okay, so this is on the hard tyres then. Nathaniel Powers, 26 laps. Now, I was expecting them to go a lot further.
I certainly was, but that is going to make it a two-stopper, so they're not quite going to make it to the halfway mark, unless they pull out something really special in their last stint, but I can't imagine they would do, as we've got Simon and Halverson pitting on the hards as well, behind them.
Yeah, so that's interesting then. It means, as we've got that's Hunter Ryan. Well, I mean, a pretty shit race comes to an end.
Oh dear.
For the Australian.
Yeah, that's not the best of positions it could be in on the inside of turn 3.
That's right, thankfully it's gone.
But it has been cleared up by the marshals pretty quickly, and well, we have our first retirement of the race then. Hunter Ryan for Ocelot.
Yeah, and I think he's been decent in his first 4 races, but I mean, this was here in Malaysia, it was a disaster from the get-go, really, for him, wasn't it? I think he'd be glad it's come to an end, quite frankly.
Quite possibly right there, but I think you do have to allow the sort of newer talent, the odd duff race here and there. We've seen that the top talent can have a bad race as well.
We certainly have. There's, but yeah, that's interesting up at the front then. As Simon, I'm sure he was only about 6 seconds behind Powers before they hit it. He's now 10.
Wow, that's not gone particularly well for him. Perhaps he was held up in the pit lane for some obscure reason, but we now have the two first cars, Perez and Suzuki, running behind Kangor, so the DS Malaysia driver has gotten past the pair of them.
Yeah, so yeah, totally missed that one. Is Perez closing up on his teammate then? Can he make a move at the final corner as behind him? Adrian Simon, on his first lap out of the pits on the fresh hard tyres, already taking a place from Tumo Kinnaman then. As into the pits comes Zazolia, and Zazolia, he's on the hard tyres, so he's eked his tyres out a lap longer then, and it's still not going to help him, is it?
I'm not entirely sure it would do, but if he can eke the next lap out, or the next stint out another lap, as this is what happened to Hunter Ryan, as he's, well, that just seems like some kind of car failure. I'm not entirely sure what it would be, but
we'll have to wait and hear from the team.
That's true. I can't imagine taking all those spins over the curb would have helped things, as this is Nathaniel Powers caught up in lap traffic here. This looks like Matson up ahead of him.
Yeah, but that is Ruiz just in front of the Ingram, and so it looks as though, potentially then, that back marker there of John Matson has helped, who's still not out of the way, has helped Powers close up on Ruiz, although he's now helping Ruiz escape. So, you know, to and fro.
Well, that is true, and keep in mind, before the pit stops, Ruiz was behind Powers, so he has since jumped him.
Yes, of course, although Ruiz is on the mediums, isn't he? So he had that to his advantage. He got what I suppose is effectively a bit of an undercut.
That is true, he did, and he does have to make, we think, one more stop than Powers will do, so that will drop him some way down the order as well. As but you've got to imagine, hard tyres against extra softs. This isn't going to be the easiest car to overtake, you can think.
No, it's yeah, certainly interesting. Obviously, Matson's found himself down towards the back because he's pitting every 6 laps, which must really interrupt your race. Actually, as Powers looks the inside turn one, but Matson, he's refusing to get out of the way, and I suppose, well, they have a Honda engine in the back of that car.
That is true, they do. I was going to suggest that Powers might just wait for Matson to pit again to get out of the way.
Well, you'd only have to wait a lap or two.
That is what I'm thinking.
In fact, actually, it should be next lap round, shouldn't it? Lap 30, I suppose, if we've been going every 6 laps, that'd be his 5th stop.
Well, there or thereabouts, but he is a lap down, so this is currently only lap 28 for him, so it'll be in another couple of laps or so. As moving on to another battle on the field, Simon chasing down Perez, this looks like.
Even behind Matson, he doesn't seem to be losing that much time for Ruiz, so probably a good job that Matson is on the extra soft, because he can keep the pace up with the leaders. He's just nowhere near them.
That is true. He can keep the pace for about 5 laps before he has to dive into the pits.
Oh dear. Actually, on the subject of Lopez, we were talking about Lopez a while ago, but rather than the driver, the team, there's just noticed Milkovic actually, he got up to 19th, he's just pitting now, but Milkovic was running 19th, that's a solid effort from the Russian in his, in Chima's first race. There's Matson now putting Ruiz under pressure. I'll get back to Lopez in a second. Jean Matson then, the back marker, putting Ruiz under pressure. And is that going to allow Powers the chance to get through and finally lap the Frenchman side by side down the straight? I think he might have just done it.
I think he may well have done. It looked as though Matson on those extra softs had a little bit more grip around the outside of the corner and could carry a little more speed. But I think Powers definitely had the drive out of the corner and down the straight, and thankfully he's disposed of the Ingram for the time being.
Just saw them there around turn 1. The orange Downton was ahead, so Powers would be very grateful for that. But yeah, just going back to Lopez, they're proving to be a massive anomaly this season, and a really interesting one. They've been, I'm sure you'll agree, they've been effectively nowhere in qualifying. Right towards the back, and I'd almost say that had they not scored points, they would be one of the usual teams that was probably most at risk of falling into Q1.
I would certainly agree with that, but it does seem that while they may not have the pace on the Friday or the Saturday, they've just seemed to be doing a very, very strong and solid job in the races, and well, that's paid out to them with points on the board. And there are a fair few teams that may have the opposite, in fact, for example.
Yeah, that's absolutely what I was going to say. I mean, obviously, they lucked in with Australia in the wet qualifying session, and the fact that it was nigh on impossible to overtake, as Nathaniel Powers looks up the inside for Enrico Ruiz at the final corner, and the British driver, then the reigning world champion, going for second place on Enrico Ruiz, but he doesn't make it at the final corner. They are side by side down the straight. Jean Matson looks as though he's getting interested in this little squabble as well. He's got probably the best seat in the house, as Powers cuts in front of Ruiz, takes the position, and Matson's gone past the Brazilian as well.
Oh goodness me, Matson, he still wants a scrap, does he? Despite being a lap down, and presumably into the pits at the end of this lap, as Simon moves past Perez as well for 5th place.
Yeah, great move there by the Frenchman then, as Ruiz tries to take Matson back, but Matson holds it around the outside, so, well, if there's anyone from Honda or Franklin on the radio to him, I think he's unplugged it.
Well, so it would seem, or he's just ignoring them, but those extra softs do seem to be holding on pretty well for towards the end of their life.
Yeah, it's intriguing as to why he's feeling the need to pit, because he's still clearly got the pace. He's running at the same speed as the front runners.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering too. Perhaps it's more sudden of a tyre lifespan pace decrease that we saw with I think it was Bayer last time out in China, was it not?
I think it was, yeah.
Who decided to try and make a set of extra softs last for the entire race for some unknown reason, as we've got, I think this is Zylander, Ursberg and Bayer having a bit of a three-tussle between them.
And that's Ursberg without a rear wing and out of the race. Felix Bayer then was trying to go around the outside, and there was contact between the pair of them. And I wonder if, surely Bayer's picked up some damage from that. His front wing looks mainly intact, although I think there's something missing from the front left.
I would be inclined to agree with you there. It looks like he's lost an element of that of the front wing there or something like that. But Ursberg has lost a lot more with his rear wing now gone, so that'll be him presumably out of the running.
Yeah, and you'd imagine Ursberg will be diving for the pit lane then and joining Hunter Ryan in retirement. And we were just talking about Lopez and how their race pace has been far better. Obviously, they lucked in with Australia and the wet qualifying session, the inability to overtake, and picked up some decent points there. But they've scored points in... They scored points in Japan. Did they score points in China? I can't remember. I
can't remember if they did or not, but that's not good. I think we've got some contact as well. That is Ursberg and Giordano as well. So they've had a bit of a coming together on the exit of the final corner.
And that's cost Giordano elements of his front wing. It's cost Giordano his whole front wing. And Ursberg as well. They're still locked together down the straight. Thankfully, everyone else has avoided them. I presume that was caused by Ursberg going for the pit lane and Giordano being on the outside of him.
Well, so it would seem, but can they in fact untangle themselves at any point? And they have done now into turn 1. So Ursberg now has an entire other lap to go through before he can dive into the pits. But speaking of diving into the pits, this is Klaas van Snelheid for his second scheduled stop, I believe. It
is indeed. So the Dutchman in from the lead, the end of lap 32. It's another 16-lap stint on the medium tyres. And it's going to plan for Klaas van Snelheid, but he does need to reduce the gap to his teammate. And it is, what was it? It was 22 seconds when he left the pits after his first stop. It's now just shy of 16, so he took 6 seconds back in that stint. He's going to need to find a little bit more than that.
He certainly is, but given that the race, we've just gone past the halfway mark, and that is, I think, Timo Kinnaman exiting the pits as well, down in 9th place.
Yeah, so Kanga's managed to eke out an extra lap this stint.
Well, so it would seem. So can he... actually, it's not going to make too much of a difference, because they're going to be pit on lap 48 or so as well, we understand.
Yeah, it should be around then. So I'd say, I don't think, to be honest, even the hard or the medium tyres eking out an extra lap is going to help them here.
It certainly seems to be that way, but well, the hard tyres, they are on a 2-stop strategy for the time being, and the medium's on a 3. Do you think they have the pace to catch that back up?
What the one pit stop?
Yeah, the medium tyres, as we see Ersberg now entering the pits for his retirement, and Giordano coming into the pits as well, so presumably he picked up damage.
Yeah, he lost his front wing, didn't he?
So he did.
I don't know, in some clear air, I think possibly they might just about be able to do it on the mediums. I mean, Class has already got the gap down to 15 seconds, so that's the second in a lap. Yeah, I don't know, it's tricky. We'll have to wait and see how things play out come the end of the race. This is the brilliant thing about the varied tyre strategies in this formula. We just don't know until the end.
That is absolutely true. We've seen a number of occasions throughout this season and seasons previous that it does tend to get towards the end of the race when all of the strategies of the different tyres, you have the softs and the mediums and occasionally the hards and the extra softs as well, especially if you have temperatures as extreme as we do here, they all just seem to coalesce right at the end for some fantastic racing.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And it usually comes down to, as you say, those last few laps. You might get a pit stop within the last 5 laps that changes the race.
We really do, as we've got, this is Simon and Garcia into the pits as well, so they're still lying astern, one behind the other.
Yeah, and just to confirm from earlier, Lopez have indeed scored in every race so far.
That's very impressive from them.
Despite
and speaking
their poor
of scoring,
pace.
that is true, and speaking of scoring, that has now elevated Alvarez up into the top 10 and Zylander into 11th as well.
Oh.
So Phoenix, oh goodness me, as Garcia exits the pitch very close to Hoskins and Bayer.
I'd say he came out there right in front of them, and I just sensed one of them missing their braking point, but thankfully Garcia's got away with it. But yeah, Alvarez then, as you say, into the top 10, and well, somewhere along the line he's jumped his teammate, but yeah, into the points for Phoenix.
Well, into the points and shadowing the points positions as well, so they're in a pretty solid position there if nothing goes wrong. I hate to put the commentator's curse on them.
Oh, don't do that after last year.
Oh no, I dare do that.
Oh, it was the 2 TS Mattershores. Adrian Simon then down the inside of Kanga at turn 1. And this is Simon on the hard tyres. Kanga, who is on the mediums and should have made a second pit stop by now, but hasn't.
You've got to think he would have done. Do you think that Ersberg's retirement may have... Does that affect the Kanga in some way? We've seen that happen a couple of times in the past.
Well, I think that was Bayer's problem last time out of China, wasn't it? So I'm just wondering, we'll have to keep an eye on Al Kanga then, and because if he doesn't pick, well, really this lap, you'd assume he's not going to, and that is going to absolutely ruin his race.
Well, it certainly will. Taking a set of medium tyres, they've lasted 18 laps, and he's going to have to drag them out another 20 after this stint. As into the pits come the 2 Phoenix cars, and that will drop them a little bit further down the order.
Yeah, what was interesting though is that they were in a position that was behind the top 5 teams, as you'd probably put them, but still some 6 seconds clear of the rest of the midfield at the point before they pitted. So, yeah, I still think Phoenix are looking as though they're in a strong position.
They could well be, depending on how everything shakes out, as Hoskins is into the pits as well for another scheduled stop there, and they now have the 2 Phoenix cars, I should say, the Meteor of Lopez separating them for the time being, so that little 4-second gap between them, Lopez has found it.
He has indeed, and well, just up with Alvarez, and be interested to see whether anything comes of the 2 Argentines being nose to tail on track. National pride at stake there.
It certainly is, I was just about to say that, but it will be interesting to see if they can perhaps eke this stint out a little longer. I know it'll be a tough ask for them to do, but if they can do that, they could snatch a point here today.
Yeah, they certainly could, as Milkovic has been lapped in his first race. I'm just interested, he's currently in 20th. What is... Okay, so the best result for an Andromeda so far is 17th.
I think that was Hoskins in Japan, was it not?
It was indeed.
Curiously enough, when De La Fuente failed to qualify.
Yeah. The only race that Andromeda have only had 1 car has been the only time they picked up a result. Maybe that's the secret.
Maybe it is. That has been picked up on in the rumour mill every so often. But keeping an eye on, that was Kanga having a bit of a slide with Klaas van Snelheid all over the back of him, and I think you've got to imagine this pretty much confirms that Kanga's race is not exactly done and dusted, but it's going to be falling apart, as you can see.
Yeah, Kanga loops it round then right in front of Klaas van Snelheid, and that's cost the Dutchman a couple of seconds, but it's cost Kanga far more, and you'd assume those tyres are just well past their best now, but as he nearly drives into the side of Timo Kinnaman. But Kanga can do absolutely nothing about it, unfortunately. He can't come into the pits. And he's down to 9th already, and you'd assume he's only going to slip further now.
Well, you've got to imagine as he just doesn't have the grip anymore. The tyres are completely lunched. And he's got a 33-second gap back to Jules Simon in 10th. But I can't imagine that's going to last for particularly long. It may last for...
Yeah, we've got 20 laps or so, haven't we? So... depends how quickly they can close him in, or it depends how quickly his tyres going off. But look at the time that he's losing already straight away. I mean, I know that's the race leader, but tenths are just vanishing.
Well, they really are. He just doesn't have the pace in the corners anymore. But you've got to imagine that the DS powertrain might have some grunt on the straights, but how good that will do, I'm not entirely certain. As we've got a battle between Halverson and Ruiz for 4th position at the moment, with Zozulia very close behind. So we did mention earlier on in the race that the first cars wanted to close up on Halverson up ahead, and it looks as though they may have done that.
Yeah, it certainly has. And Ruiz as well then has lost out massively to Klaas van Snelheid. Both on the medium tyres, they were nose to tail in the first stint. We got a yellow flag in the first sector, but Ruiz is now some 12 seconds behind.
I think he might have gotten caught up in the Kangur spin there more than
very true, yeah.
As I think Vasquez is starting to fall down the order.
Is that who we've got off? Yeah, looks it, doesn't it?
It certainly does. He's now been lapped, and I think we could have a 3rd retirement in the race in the shape of Vasquez.
Yeah, that looks very likely.
About.
Yeah, there we go then. Vasquez joins the list of retirees then. So Ingram, and there, I believe, if you just look on... as Ruiz has been hit! Ruiz passed Halverson then, but he's been hit into turn 1 and spun off. And Enrique Ruiz, has he stalled it? No, he hasn't. He's managed to get it going then through the gravel. But Enrique Ruiz has lost a lot of time there. Slipped from 4th back to 8th. This is on board with Vasquez, so this is the replay then. And that's Bayer out of the race as well then. Vasquez did what Bayer did earlier to Perez. But slightly earlier on in the corner, caught the back of Bayer's car, misjudged the overtake, lost his wheel, took off Bayer's rear wing, but all drama in that corner then, as Ruiz has lost 4 positions, having been knocked off by Halverson as well.
Well, it certainly did. It looked as though Ruiz made the move, pulled back over into the braking zone and just caught Halverson off guard with how early he stood on the brakes and slowed it down. So I'm not entirely sure. It does appear to be perhaps Halverson's fault from the outside, but maybe 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, as Bayer is into the pits and out of the race. Yeah, well and truly, it'd be... I hope Halverson hasn't picked up any damage from that one. But likewise Ruiz, I hope they've both managed. Interestingly, he's only lost 7 seconds to Halverson there, so I think it's recoverable. That Franklin is clearly quicker than the 2 firsts and the North Star ahead of it. It certainly is, and there is about 17 or 16 laps left to go, as we've got a run perhaps for Zozulia down on Halverson into the, this is the hairpin, but thinks better of it. Yeah, and Halverson does not dive for the pits, and I believe nor has Ruiz. As Zozulia pulls out down the inside in towards turn 1 then, it's side by side through the corner. Halverson, can he hang it around the outside? They're both on the hard tyres. He's now got the inside line for turn 2, but Zozulia holds it around the outside and moves up into 4th place. Can Halverson stick it there? I don't think he can, although Zozulia is all over the grass, but he does indeed take 4th place, covers the inside line into turn 4 and defends it, and Halverson now has to defend from Timo Kinnaman as well. Well, I was going to mention keep an eye behind, because Kinnaman is he's been and there we go. This race. Oh, there we go. And Halverson is he going to lose down to Perez as well? That would be a story. Yeah, it would. Halverson then, he's lost 2 positions this lap. He's now got Perez. I think he just needs to regain his composure, and I think he can probably hold the first back. I think he might well be able to, but Perez is on the medium tyres, it appears, so he'll have 1 more stop to make, but then Halverson has 1 as well on the hard tyres. And I was talking about Kinnaman just being fairly quiet during this race, as he seemed to have been throughout the season so far, perhaps. He's not been the sort of flashy, headline-grabbing driver that Ruiz has been, but he's been steadily plugging away and getting the points where he can, and that's, I think, what has helped, maybe, Franklin grab the lead of the Constructors' Championship for the time being. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. He's been a
and a lot of people in the paddock will resent me for this, but he's been a solid second driver.
I would definitely agree with that. He's not quite on the pace of Ruiz right now. I think that much is fair. But he's been shadowing him very, very well and just helping Franklin gain the points where they can. As this is, I think we were saying Perez and Halverson going for 6th position.
Yeah, Perez there had the inside line at turn 1, the outside at turn 2, and I think he has exactly replicated what his teammate managed to pull off, and he's demoted Halverson to 7th.
He might need to keep an eye on in the run down into turn 4 though, but Halverson doesn't go for the dive. Perhaps he thinks the first is just too quick of a car there.
Yeah, well, it seemed it there. Perez breezed up behind, obviously he was in the slipstream down the straight, but managed to pull alongside fairly easily, which is interesting seeing as both the cars have a Ford engine. Might want to speak to them about that one.
Well, potentially, but then the aerodynamic philosophies of the two cars are going to be a little bit different, so that could perhaps play into the factor there.
You're so diplomatic.
Well, perhaps I have to be, but then Ruiz, we're on board with Ruiz right now, chasing down Halverson, who's just about 4/10 up the road or so.
Yeah, what's interesting just noted is the top 3 are some half a minute clear of Zazolia in 4th now. I think the podium seems fairly locked in. It's just working out who's on which step.
I think for the time being, you may well be right.
Yes, of course, barring any major dramas, I just want to put that out there to the Malaysian gods who clearly don't like us that much.
Yeah, well, but I think the skies are remaining clear for the time being.
Yeah, they certainly look still very blue at the moment.
They do, as we've got, this is Ruiz still chasing down Halverson and can't seem to make too many inroads on the North Star driver for the time being right now.
That'd be somewhat comical, wouldn't it, if what you'd assume was the fastest car that's been behind Halverson in the last 5 laps was the only one that struggled to get past.
Oh, well, that certainly would be, but then I think we saw when Zazulia got past, Kinman was able to pounce, and then that put Perez onto the back of him. And I think maybe now Halverson, you did mention getting his composure back. He might well have just done that for the time being, as Kanga continues to fall away on his very, very worn medium tyres.
Yeah, I was literally just about to mention that myself. He's now only got 10 seconds back to Jules Simon, and there's 15 laps to go. So I think any hope of points there for Kanga, unless there's some crazy drama and he's not involved, have pretty much gone now. And his bad start to the season gets worse.
Well, the sole high point in Japan it was when he finished second, but it's just been from one thing to another for the Estonian. And
that'll be the last 2 races without points.
That is true, and DS Madashaw, you've got to imagine they're going to be able to, they're going to want him to turn this around pretty quickly, both the team and himself, as I think that was Hutchinson into the pits from 20th or so.
Looks it, yeah, he's just, he's got the little pit marker next to his name, as Ruiz didn't even contemplate a move there down into turn 1.
Well, meanwhile, his teammate is caught up behind Alexander Zazulia in the first here we're watching right now. So both Franklins embroiled is the word I was trying to get out, in scraps with teams that you would imagine they should be fairly clear ahead of.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Ruiz was clear of this little gaggle until his incident with Halverson. And but yeah, Kinnaman, we were discussing a second ago. He's just not. He's been solid, but he's not had the pace, and I think you found that. I don't think we've really seen him involved in anything specific here. Yet he's found himself here just mired between the 2 first cars. I mean, really, he should be. I mean, a clear 4th, if nothing else, if not mixing it with the leaders.
I'd certainly agree with that for the time being. He may not be on the pace of Ruiz, but he does have some good pace in him. But I think it's just that kind of killer instinct that he may be lacking. He did win those 2 races toward the end of 2015, I want to say, with Westwood.
Yeah.
But that was when that car was arguably the class of the field.
Absolutely. Is Ruiz up the inside of Halverson in the final corner? Can he make that one work? He's going to have the traction on the exit, but Halverson has got the inside line, although he's going to drift across. I wonder if they're going to switch over here. Down the straight, Ruiz into the slipstream, but it doesn't look like he can close up whatsoever. Halverson leaves a gap on the inside, but Ruiz is really too far back to take advantage.
Well, this is quite interesting to see Ruiz struggling to get past. You would have thought, given the pace that the Franklin car we know has in it, you would have thought he would have been making some pretty significant inroads by now, but it just doesn't seem to be coming together for whatever reason.
Yeah, and the pair of them have now fallen 3 seconds back from Perez.
Well, again, this just shows you the time that you can lose while scrapping amongst one another. But yeah, Halverson currently running 7th, so that's a fairly solid result for him. But Ruiz in 8th, you've got to imagine he won't be too happy at all.
No, absolutely not. Especially as championship leader as it stands. But yeah, just on Kinnaman, just to wrap that one up. I think he's. I hate to use it and sort of categorise, but he seems classically Finnish. He's just so laid back and he's quick, but he doesn't have that sort of like final 5% that he needs to just, as you say, that killer instinct.
Yeah, I mean he is quiet, as you said. He's sort of fairly quiet amongst the paddock. He doesn't tend to talk much unless he needs to, as there's a brief yellow flag in the final sector there. But I think he just lacks a little bit of explosiveness and drive that the top guys have, like your Ruizes and your Powers, for example.
Yeah, most definitely. As we jump on board with Alar Kanga then, and you can see how much the Estonian is struggling. He's already lost out 9th to Jules Simon, and it won't be long until Garcia demotes him out of the points. And
you can see how much.
Yeah, it's
so I was going to say, you can see how much work he's having to put into the steering wheel to get around those corners, and the tyres just aren't there anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just. Oh, I'm glad I'm not sat in that cockpit.
That would.
Or on the other end of the radio, because I should imagine there are several expletives coming out of the Estonian's mouth. He's usually quite quiet and reserved, but I bet even he's rather angry with this situation.
Well, I imagine anyone would be if they were in the situation that Kanga finds himself in right now. As we've got this is again Halverson and Ruiz with one of the Andromedas behind them, and they don't seem to be dropping it. No,
that's very true. So that's well, if Hoskins has only just been lapped by the leaders, I assume that's De La Fuente.
That is what I would have
thought.
That would
be doing his confidence the world of good, won't it? Following race winners in Halverson and Ruiz and learning from them.
The current championship leader as well, as that is Garcia moving past Kangur for what is 10th place in the final points being position. So that shuffles the Estonian out of the points.
I was going to say, that's a really impressive move then. We have seen overtakes there, and it was still good. Made slightly less impressive when you consider Kanga's ailment.
It does just take a little bit of the shine off it, does it not? As there is a yellow flag in the final sector, so it'll be interesting to keep an eye on what that might be. But into the first corner again, and this is on Enrique Ruiz here. Oh, goodness me!
And that is, wow, massive contact there from Enrique Ruiz.
Who goes round again. So he just has had no luck with Halverson this race, it would seem.
No, so he absolutely hasn't.
Front wing damage for the Franklin, and he appears to be continuing on now. So perhaps it's not costing him too much time.
Yeah, perhaps not, but if the other one was 50-50, that was firmly Ruiz's fault.
I don't want to appear biased, but I think that might be right.
Well, yeah, I mean, Halverson was on the inside line, he was ahead, and Ruiz turned into him. Thankfully, it was Ruiz that came off worse, so he shot himself in the front.
Well, that's true. As we go on board with Felix Perez at the back of this first sandwich, with Kinnaman as the filling, it would appear.
Been that way for a few laps. Maybe he likes being the filling.
Perhaps he does. I'm quite glad Harry Westwood isn't here for that one. As
he'd have enjoyed that.
I imagine he may have done. Hello, Harry.
Oh yeah, as we're as you say on board with Perez then. It's interesting, Kinnaman can't do anything about Solia, but it seems as though Perez can't do anything about Kinnaman either.
That's true, at least he hasn't thrown it off and crashed, however.
Yeah.
Perhaps being a little more circumspect. Ruiz being the championship leader, we said he may have been more circumspect in the early going of the race, but having found himself punted round in turn 1, perhaps a bit too eager to get back through the field, and that may have consigned him to the lower reaches of the points here.
Yeah, I think the sort of the standard hot-headedness that you see from Ruiz when things aren't quite going right.
Well, potentially, it's all a case of as we this is Alvarez here with Kangur just up ahead.
Yeah, the the two DS teams, and well, you can't imagine Kanga's going to defend this one. Well, I don't think Kanga has the tools to defend this one, really.
Well, that appears to be the case, but he's going to have a go, taking the racing line into the corner, and Alvarez not really doing anything too outlandish on the way in.
Yeah, I was expecting him to be passed already at this point, frankly. But I'm surprised that Matthew haven't. There we go. As Alvarez dives to the inside of turn 1, and Kanga is going to have absolutely nothing to fight. Look at that. Alvarez is ahead even before turn 2. I don't think we've seen that all race, such as the lack of grip that Kanga has.
And even through turn 3, the gap is out to almost a second or so.
Yeah.
So that just goes to show you the sheer lack of grip that Kanga has.
He's going to be lapped in a second.
Oh, that'll be a bit galling, being lapped by your teammate perhaps, as Simon is some 8 and a bit seconds off the race lead.
Yeah.
With Klaas van Snelheid, he wasn't that close too long ago, was he? We haven't been talking about the leaders too much because there just hasn't been.
When he came out of the pits, it was 16 seconds the gap to Powers, so he's only taken 4 as one of the Holmqvist flies out the pits and nearly into the side of a first.
That would not have been good, but he has interposed himself between Perez and Kinnaman from the looks of things. So
that's Bergqvist, isn't it?
I think it is Bergqvist. Well, it has to be because Bayer's retired, we understand.
Yeah, Bayer is sat in the pit lane.
That he is, and that won't be too good for the Mexican in the first car, having to get past one of the back markers to close back up on Kinnaman there, but that will give Kinnaman the chance to perhaps go on the attack on Suzulia without having to worry about the car behind.
Yeah, it certainly will, as we are on lap 47 here, so you'd assume the medium-tyred runners will be making their final stop next time around.
I think that is right in the window right there.
As it stands then, I think this is looking very, very good for Nathaniel Powers and those on the hard tyres, because, well, he's still got 12 seconds back to his teammate, and I don't fancy Klaas's chances of closing 12 seconds in 8 laps.
That is true. I don't think that's quite on the cards given the pace he's shown earlier on in the race, and the gap to Simon appears to have stabilised around about the 9-second window.
Yeah.
So depending on how all the pit stops shake out, this could well be in Nathaniel Powers' hands.
It could be, and it would be the first win for the defending world champion this year. And in fact, his first victory since this race last year.
That is an astonishing statistic when you consider that he won the championship last year.
Yeah, done on pure consistency.
You're absolutely right. 13 podiums out of 18 races was an incredible run, but you've got to imagine that it will be a much, much tougher fight this season given the calibre of the DS Madishaw and the Franklin drivers that we've seen so far.
Yeah, you'd absolutely imagine so. As just to note, we were briefly on board there with Nikolai Milkovic, who finds himself in 16th place. Now, if he could stay there, that would initially have been good enough to jump Chima ahead of Andromeda, were it not for the fact that Hoskins were 2 cars up the road.
That's true. Will Hoskins finds himself in 14th, but I think given the fact that this is their first Formula Virtual race at all, a 16th place finish for the Chima team, I think that's a pretty commendable result for them.
And ahead of 3 teams who have already scored points this year.
That is true, at least if he can hold on to it. Lopez is looking pretty feisty behind him in the Meteor car we're on board with right now, and he could have a run down the back straight into the hairpin.
Yeah, very true, and look at the speed differential. Lopez has to back out of it, he's got so much pace as Milkovic comes across to block him. But Lopez sweeps around the outside, and he does indeed demote. I've forgotten who he was racing, Milkovic, that was it, as Kanga dives. No, it's not Kanga.
That is Klaas van Snelheid. At one time the race leader he was in the lead of the race at one point, wasn't he?
He was,
He was, but now exits the pits, still in 3rd place, so ahead of the 2 first cars. That just goes to show you the gap that they had up ahead. Yeah,
doesn't it just? And well, Klaas will be grateful for that. It's given him the free air he desires, although there are some back markers not too far up the road. It's all in his hands. 12 seconds, 7 laps. Crack on, mate.
Well, that's him told, I suppose. But he may get a tow down the straights from the back markers, but I can't imagine that 12 seconds is a gap enough to close.
If you can get in 12 seconds in a tow, my cars are running nose to tail in every race.
That much is true, but Adrian Simon,
session.
Adrian Simon, though, is going to have to pit again, we understand, and it'll be interesting to see where that shakes out between Klaas van Snelheid and the Frenchman.
Yeah, if Klaas gets caught in this traffic, which it very much looks like he is, he could do with disposing of them fairly quickly. Well, that's one of them. Nice job. Go on, Ram Milkovic as well. Oh, that's a bit close.
That is quite close, and Milkovic has the inside line, but Klaas van Snelheid utilises that powertrain round the outside, and it disposes of both of them in pretty swift order. And well, the gap was 3 seconds before Klaas van Snelheid's pit stop, so will that have come down a little?
That will certainly be interesting to see. I mean, what was Klaas behind when he pitted? It was 12 seconds, so he lost 20.
I think that might be the case, you're right.
We've got a crash in the pit lane!
Oh my goodness, that is Kinnaman into the pits. I think he's just gotten away with it.
That's Milkovic and Wagner and Ruiz!
Oh no, that's Ruiz as well. So the Franklin it's not gone well for Ruiz, and now he finds himself out of the race.
Yeah, and Wagner is stationary in the pit lane, blocking the entrances there. And surely, well, this is the time that everyone's diving into the pits. This is the pit window. And there's an Ingram coming in behind. Hopefully, he spots, and a Meteor. Hopefully, they spot the Wagner stationary in the middle of the road, but don't think he's going to. And that is Matson into Wagner as well. And which Meteor is that? It's Jules Simon. And there's a North Star coming in.
I think that's Garcia.
Yeah, it is. The number 10.
He's gotten away with it. That was only his front wing that fell.
Yeah, lucky there for Garcia then. Unlike Ruiz, Matson and Jules Simon, who have piled into the stationary Lopez of that's Kinnaman without a rear wheel. Both Franklins.
Both Franklins have retired. That is Arden Hutchinson there in the Lucas. Presumably there's been a coming together between the pair of them, but it's all kicking off in the last few laps or so.
Yeah, you'd assume so. So that's a yellow flag in the middle sector. Hutchinson is out, Kinnaman is out, Ruiz is out, Wagner's out, Milkovic is out, Matson's out, Simon is out, Jules that is, and I'm sure there was someone else tangled up in that. No, that might be all of them. But we've got Powers without front wing. Nathaniel Powers, the race leader, is without a front wing.
He got caught up in the incidents as well. So this has turned the race completely on its head from what we thought was going to be happening. And if Powers has to pit for an extended period of time, Zozulia could well be on course for a podium if the pit stop is long enough.
Yeah, and that's surely going to hand the race win to Adrian Simon.
Well, you've got to imagine, but Klaas van Snelheid, remember, he came into the pits as this is what happened into the pit stops, as they just came together.
Yeah, that was just behind Klaas then, and they came, and as we saw earlier in the race, kept locked wheels into the pits, and but just crashed into the pit wall. This is Kinnaman on Hutchinson, and well, that was solidly Kinnaman's fault.
I think.
Here we go. On board with Powers, and there's the wheel. So the wheel's obviously gone over the pit wall onto the pit straight, and it's Powers that's hit it unsighted. And here we go into the pits from the race lead, and he needs a new front wing, and this is going to be a lengthier than normal stop.
It certainly is, but keep an eye on the timing screens on the left-hand side. Alvarez in 7th for Phoenix, Zylander in 8th, Hoskins in 9th for Andromeda.
So suddenly, all of this carnage that we've seen could have completely turned the Q1 battle on its head.
It certainly could well have done. As we saw last season, Malaysia, an outright crazy race, played havoc with the point standings toward the lower reaches, and it looks like it's done the same thing again.
Yeah, absolutely. Last year, though, we needed rain. We didn't this year. we just needed a Chima in the race.
We needed a Chima in the race and a hell of a close midfield. As, well, goodness me, we've got 16th, we've got 11 cars retired, and
Yikes.
7 of them in the span of 2 laps.
That was, I have to say, I hope Elroy Wagner's all right after that one, because he received a number of hefty hits. They certainly approached that pit lane at some speed and didn't see him until the last minute, and he was whacked a fair few times. So hopefully he's escaped that one, but that was that was awful, and I don't know what to say.
Well, it certainly was. We saw a similar incident last year, I think, between Ryota Yoshida in the Ocelot and Judson Sykes in one of the North Stars when they got caught up with one another in the final hairpin, and almost a carbon copy of what happened back then. But there was not that many cars coming into them. But you've got to imagine that they would have been slowing down for the pit lane, you would hope. As Simon, speaking of, enters the pit lane for his final stop with, I think that is Hoskins behind him.
Yeah, I think you're right. And interesting to note then, Powers came out in third between Klaas van Snelhout and Zolia, so he lost a decent chunk of time, but not enough to fall off the podium. As Simon came into the pits, the gap back to Klaas was 19.3 seconds. We think it's around 20 for a stop, so this is going to be close as anything. As Klaas van Snelhout starts lap 53, there's 4 to go, and he's taken the lead back. Klaas is through.
Well, keep an eye on Powers as well, because he could be closing right in on the back of Simon as he exits the pit lane. You can just see him on the side of the shot right there. But Simon, that's dropped him to second, and now the fight for the victory is very much on. There we are, we've got a meteor in between them as well.
Yeah, and that's bolts Adrian Simon. Powers down the inside of the Frenchman then, and has he taken second place? That's Kanga.
That was Kanga. We're getting a little bit carried away there perhaps. But that presumably. But this is Nathaniel Powers, in fact, and Kanga, he hasn't held up his teammate, but he could well hold up Powers as well.
At what point did Kanga get back ahead?
I have no idea, but this is just what the hectic race has done.
I don't quite know how that happened, but I got well excited about a potential 1-2 there, and Alar Kanga, don't appreciate that one, mate. But it's Adrian Simon then still in second. He's 2 seconds back from Klaas van Snelhout. Powers is about a second and a half back, so a race that 4 laps ago looked as though it was going to end. Powers, Simon, Klaas van Snelhout has, it's reversed itself.
It has been flipped on its head in more ways than one as Zylander enters the pits for Phoenix, and this will drop him. I'm not entirely sure where it would end up, but if it all goes well, I think Phoenix are still on course for points here, because Alvarez is currently running 7th as well.
Yeah, well, this is Lopez, isn't it, coming down the start finish straight now. But there's Zylander. Zylander already out the pit lane, and he's made his final stop, and he's still in 9th.
He's still in 9th, so this could well be points for Phoenix, and this is exactly what they were wanting to escape the Q1 battle.
This is unbelievable. Phoenix, and Alex won't mind me saying this at all, Phoenix have had very little pace in the opening 3 races. They've not looked even remotely close to points, and now turning up at the track where they went so well in the rain last year, but had heartbreak at the end, could it have absolutely transformed their 2019 season?
It certainly could well have done. This would be a pretty significant haul for them as De La Fuente pits from 15th and at the moment last somehow.
Yeah, how has that one happened?
Well, I have no idea. We've had so many retirements, but that is what I was going to mention. Sometimes all it takes is just keeping your nose clean, as Hoskins again moves up to 10th ahead of Lopez.
Yes, Hoskins has just overtaken Lopez for the final point.
It could well have been. There's 3 laps to go, including this one.
I suppose we shouldn't count our chickens after last year. So
that is
Phoenix in 7th and 9th. We won't say anything as yet.
Andromeda currently running 10th, and let us continue watching the race, and absolutely nothing of incident will happen, he said.
Come on then, 3 to go. 3 to go, and what a result. I mean, the top 5 look pretty, top 6 look pretty standard. Behind that, what?
I mean, so it would seem, as we've got, the 2 Phoenix cars have got Garcia in between them, and, Klaas van Snelhout starts lap 55. There's only 2 to go, and this is Lopez having a bit of a run on Hoskins down into the first corner, but carrying the speed is the Brit and maintaining the position for now. Yeah,
this is the battle then for the final World Championship point, and it's Will Hoskins and Andromeda, a team in only their 4th round, that hold it at the moment, and that would be very, very impressive for the Brazilian outfit. I'm intrigued as to how Garcia has ended up so far behind his teammate.
I am not entirely certain. I think he may have gotten caught up in 1 or 2 sort of scraps along the way.
Yeah, I assume so.
It seems to be. Although I think it would be fair to say that he's perhaps a little bit shy of overall pace on Halverson, but not that far back.
No, he shouldn't be, 50 seconds behind in the race. Well, that's a second a lap.
That seems a bit much for me, given the numbers that we've seen. As this is Powers sliding through that corner. He is all maximum attack mode to snatch that second place for Simon and get a Downton 1-2.
He absolutely is, and you can see the top 3 all in one shot. And, I'll be honest, as Zylander gets lapped, he'll be grateful for that. It means he doesn't have to complete the final lap.
I suppose it will do, but then, I imagine if he was able to stay on that lead lap, if there's any incidents happening ahead, he could snatch another position or two, maybe.
True. Although what that does do is, as long as they complete 55 laps then, it guarantees Phoenix at least 8th and 9th.
That is true, it certainly does. And, well, we're still keeping an eye on Hoskins in 10th. For the time being, it looks as though he may be holding on.
Yeah, and he's built a gap as well, look. There we see Will Hoskins, he looks as though he's got around a second or so back to JML.
It certainly seems that way, and I think that is enough of a buffer to just hold on for this next however many kilometres it is.
Yeah, I reckon it absolutely is. We've got the top three within 2.5 seconds. A few laps ago I didn't think we'd have that at all, and I certainly didn't expect it to be in this order, but there we go. That's the craziness that Malaysia throws up. We've had a phenomenal race here. Once again, we've got the final lap now as Klaas van Snelheid up front, 1.5 seconds ahead of Adrian Simon, who is currently being somewhat balked by the sister team, DS, the DS Phoenix of Thierry Zylander. Powers sweeps around the outside. They've both lapped him now then. And I don't think we're going to see any change of position. Klaas van Snelheid has a lead. He's got one straight and a hairpin to go.
Well, that is what we said about Alvarez last time, but I don't think there will be any incidents this time around. It's Klaas van Snelheid. He rounds the final corner. Take it away, Bradley.
Here we go then. Van Snelheid out of the final corner and across the line for his second win in 2 races. Adrian Simon second. Nathaniel Powers completes the podium. And Klaas van Snelheid then, he's had, including this one, 5 pole positions. That's only the second time that he's gone on to win. Fastest lap as well. That's a hat-trick for Klaas van Snelheid. And brilliant drive there from the Dutchman. Don't know where it came from, but he pulled it out. And so Klaas, Simon and Powers is the podium. Felix Perez. At what point did Perez pass Zoya?
I don't think I saw it, but we've got Perez 4th and Zozulia 5th, and Johan Halverson is going to cross the line in 6th, but we can confirm that both Phoenix and Andromeda have scored points. Zylander in 9th, Hoskins in 10th, and Alvarez, I think, is going to hold on for 7th.
Yeah, here we see them then on screen. He's got Garcia behind him, but a couple of seconds back. And yeah, it looks indeed as though, well, Alvarez is guaranteed at least 8th now. Hoskins has scored a point for Andromeda in 10th. Zylander's got his first points in his rookie season, only his 4th race. And yeah, Alvarez, it looks as though he is going to hold on to 7th. And that's a mammoth point haul for Phoenix. And I mean, that's surely going to save them from Q1. Andromeda, that's going to put them level with Ocelot. That puts Ingram into the Q1 zone at the moment as it stands.
Well, it certainly does. I think we've been saying throughout the season that Andromeda looked the most likely of the 4 newcomers to score points, and, well, we've proven us right. What a madcap race that was.
There we go. Alvarez makes it down to the start-finish line this time. He has crossed it in 7th place. Brilliant result for Phoenix in 7th and 9th, as we've said. But it was Klaas van Snelheid up front. He, well, he picked up the pieces when his teammate ran into trouble, got the job done and on Adrian Simon, and has won here in Malaysia from pole position with fastest lap as well. So the official classification shows then that for the 2nd race in a row, it's Klaas van Snelheid on the top of the podium. What it also means is that for the first time this year, 4 races in, the pole sitter has not retired from the race and has actually gone on to win it. Adrian Simon and Nathaniel Powers complete the podium ahead of the 2 firsts. Both North Stars in the points, but the most impressive thing, the 2 Phoenix cars, 7th and 9th. Franklin with a double retirement will do them no good in the championship at all. Klaas van Snelheid completed a hat-trick with fastest lap as well, and that puts him into the lead of the Drivers' Championship. He's now 7 points clear of Adrian Simon as Ruiz slips to 3rd. Powers has jumped up 3 positions into 4th, but the most impressive mover by far is Sergio Alvarez. He has gone up 12 places to 12th with that 7th place finish. Will Hoskins gained 7 spots as well with his first point of the season and the first point for Andromeda, which is crucial as we come to the Constructors' Championship, to which Downton have gone to the top of. They are 17 points clear of Franklin, who slipped to 2nd. Mathishur at 21 off the lead in 3rd, ahead of 1st, North Star and Lopez still. Phoenix have jumped up 5 spots, and Andromeda with their first points have currently got themselves out of the bottom 6. But that's all from our race here today in Kuala Lumpur. So from both me and Nick, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time for round 5 from Silverstone, Great Britain.